let's move on to the 12 Angry Men Best Movie Award. This is probably going to be the most hotly contested award of the night, I would assume. We have six nominees for this one. We couldn't narrow it down to five, but the Academy's up to like 15 at this point, so I don't feel too bad about it. Uh, Civil War, Dune Part 2, We Live in Time, Longlegs, Furiosa, and Challengers. Ty, talk me through your pick here. What do you want this Best Movie Award to go to?
Well, I mean, if it was up to me, and we're just going off my list, Challengers was the best movie I saw all year, and I'll stand by it. I love that movie, double A blast movie grade. But I think the correct pick, and it's going to be tough to battle because you didn't really like this movie, Dune Part 2. Everyone's arguably favorite movie of the year. I think this should be standard. It deserves the recognition at the Oscars. It's not going to get it. I think it should get it here at the Blast Awards.
I I would rather have Challengers win than Dune Part 2, and I didn't not like Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2 I gave an 8 out of 10. That is
All
that is
right,
a very good movie. It's just
you
not something that blew my mind necessarily. I also gave Challengers an 8 out of 10.
okay? Go back to the Dune Part 2 pod. I don't think you gave that movie one compliment.
Okay. That is because let me explain my philosophy here on Dune Part 2. So, I watched Dune Part 1 when it came out in theaters, and I was blown away. I think that just the look of everything in the Dune universe, one of the things that Denis Villeneuve does amazingly in general is just the scale of everything he shoots. And this extends to Blade Runner 2049. It's one of the things that makes that movie so good, I think, is that everything feels massive. Like you get a real sense of how big this world is. And I loved how Dune 1 did that and how it made everything feel so big and so grand, and it set up these characters in such a fascinating way. And I think Dune Part 2 did the same thing with the scale, which was still cool. And part of the reason why I love why I love Villeneuve as a director is that, but why I like Dune Part 2 is that everything is gorgeous. But the the storyline and the lack of conclusion felt a little distasteful for me, and I was hoping for Dune Part 2 to be the last Dune. I'm not I don't want to sit down and watch 9 hours of Dune, and
Ah,
that is why Dune Part 2 takes a slight hit from me.
well, then make a case for something, or just give me challengers.
My case is for Civil War. I think that this was a movie that I will probably always remember seeing in theaters for the first time. I don't know if a movie has ever had such a force behind gunshots for me. Like every single shot in this movie feels like a jump scare. I also think that the decision to use the photography throughout to help tell the story is really fascinating and something that worked really well for me. And there were a number of scenes with just amazing tension. And I think that at the heart of it, it's a whiplash, Black Swan, obsessed artist story that fits into those categories. I have no problems with Civil War, but if you're not going to give me that movie, I would settle on Challengers with you.
I mean, yeah. I mean, hey, challengers is my one. We're going challengers, but shout out Civil War, a movie that deserves the recognition you're giving it. And I feel like it's kind of like flown under the radar since it came out. And I think it's because people went in assuming it was going to be like a super politically heavy driven movie, and it isn't. And I hope that isn't why it's, I guess, kind of being disregarded as a great movie, because that's what it is. It is a truly great movie.
Yeah, it's a real shame. And that's what I see a lot of comments on that movie about is not taking sides. And I think that the movie had to not take sides to be as successful as it did. But moving on, challengers, go ahead, take it for best movie.